Hope you guys are having a good one. Today we're going to talk about 5 Marvel comic projects I want to see in the MCU in the next about 5 to 10 years. Off the gate at number 5, I have the team known as Uncanny X-Force. Mainly the storyline with Rick Remender's version of Uncanny X-Force. I think his storytelling in that is really great. My favorite story being with, of course, Dark Angel and kind of following and kind of going against him in that storyline, and also the version of Apocalypse as a little kid and him seeing him grow up would be a great moment, I think, in the MCU and for the X-Men universe as well, because it's also, I think, a gritty, even though it has moments of comedy with Phantom X and Deadpool being in that team. I think there's also a grittiness to it that we didn't get to see in the Deadpool universe movies, like Deadpool 2. We saw in the comedic, they weren't really as gritty to me as I would like to see a little bit darker. Maybe even I would like to it still be R-rated, but I'd like to see an even darker version possible of the X-Force in the next coming 5 to 10 years. At number 4, I have the story, of course, of Planet Hulk and World War Hulk. I love World War Hulk a little bit more, of course, because it has the more destructive elements of the Hulk that we're used to seeing. But I hope they do the storyline. I know I've heard production is going to be starting next year, but I really doubt that. I think the story is way too big to happen next year. I think it would be probably 3 to 5 years for this movie to get made, because they have to set up the Illuminati as well. If they're gonna do it in that scale, you're gonna have to bring in all those other characters involved. This is like a whole big event for the Hulk. So for them to do this movie, even though I could see them like slipping back in terms of how many characters they would do it in, it would still be a big event to happen. So I could see this happening in the next 5 years, this story in the MCU. I think it's a great story. It brings just the indestructible nature of the Hulk that we haven't seen, especially in Infinity War and Endgame. They didn't really show the destructive capabilities of the Hulk that I love to see since the first Avengers of Joss Whedon. It has just great moments of course, battle with the Hulk, even versus the X-Men, and see him going against especially the Illuminati, which were the people that sent him to Planet Hulk in the first place. And then having his family, of course, dead by the end of that story, and then in comes World War Hulk and his indestructible nature and how he continues to get angrier and angrier as this comic goes on. Is just really great, and I would love to see this happen in the MCU in the next few years. Number 3, I have the story of the 2015 version of Secret Wars by Jonathan Hickman. I prefer this version compared to the 1985 version, mainly because the element of Doctor Doom and how great he is in the story of Hickman's as this kind of just great villain and overall power, and just how smart he is, and going against, of course, the Avengers and just the whole Marvel universe, really. But I would love to see this happen in the next maybe even 10 years. I know the Russo brothers are planning, and we're planning to do the 1985 version of Secret Wars, which I really like as well. But I just love the 2015 version slightly more, especially because Doctor Doom as seen as God Doom in that story, and just how epic it really is. Number 2, I have Hickman's Fantastic Four storyline, which I think is really great because it showcases how the Fantastic Four family works as a family, and just how great the dynamics are, especially with Franklin Richards as a kid being this super genius and super powerful character within the MCU, and its role with Galactus and all the cosmic elements. I just think this is just a great movie waiting to happen. I hope they go with Jonathan Hickman's iteration for the stories to come, especially since John Watts is directing it. I think he will probably include moments with Spider-Man in it, and it would just be great to see them with interactions with Franklin Richards and Spider-Man as seen in the comics. It's just a great moment. I just hope they go with this version. At number 1, I have House of M by Brian Michael Bendis. Part of the story has already been shown on a smaller scale with WandaVision, but I would really like this to happen in probably the next 5 years with the X-Men being introduced already in the MCU. But I think this just be a great story to tell, especially the profound effect that the Scarlet Witch has on the X-Men universe and the Marvel universe in general can be shown here, as well as I love the thriller elements with Magneto and his family, especially Quicksilver, and everything that happens at the end of the comic. It's just really great moments in all of the comics history, and I think at the forefront we see the true power of the Scarlet Witch and the mutants in the MCU. I hope that they continue down that path and continue to showcase the mutants even more. I just love seeing the X-Men. I would have chose either this or House of X, Powers of X. I just love the X-Men. I just want to really see them strive in the MCU in the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully.